Chapter 6. An arrow zipped through the air and buried itself in the owlbear's eyes. The owlbear squawked and dropped Mud. The wind knocked out of Mud's lungs when he slammed into the ground, and he lay paralyzed for a moment. The owlbear clawed at his eye, tearing the arrow out. Hera's bowstring snapped again, and the second arrow plunged into the owlbear's other eye, burying itself in clear to the fletchings. The owlbear bellowed in bitter pain and rocked back and forth. "Run, Mud!" Harry yelled. Mud tried to get up, but his arms wouldn't move, and his legs were tangled from the fall. The owlbear thundered to all fours above him, whipping its head back and forth. Hera's bowstring snapped twice more. "Mud, get out of there!" Hera cried. The owlbear's hoots turned to a long plaintive moan. It wavered on its feet. Hera reached under Mud's shoulders and jerked him out from underneath the owlbear. It bellowed one last time and thundered into a heap, shaking the forest floor. "Mud?" Hera said. Her worried brown eyes stared down into his face. Mud managed to get enough air into his lungs to have groaned. "Good, you're alive," Hera said. She wrapped him in a tight hug. "I was afraid that monster had snapped your neck." "I can't breathe," Mud said, pushing her off him and gasping. She backed away, and an awkward silence fell over them. He could tell Hera was dying to say, "I told you so," but was biting her tongue until she knew Mud was mortally wounded. Mud pressed his hand against his aching neck and sat up. His vision swam for a moment and then cleared. The monstrous owlbear lay in a heap of feathers and fur, inches from his legs. The arrow in the eye had killed it, going straight through to the brain. Hera's other shots had just sped it on its way. Mud shook his head and then regretted it as pain shot down his spine. He could never have hit such a small target as the owlbear's eye. He cleared his throat. "Hera, It's all right. You don't have to say it." Hera rested a comforting hand on his shoulder. Mud grunted, annoyed at her superior attitude. "Yes, I do. Thank you, Hera. You saved my life." Hera smiled, and her eyes twinkled. "I can't believe you missed that shot. The owlbear was right there, as big as a cottage." Mud grimaced. "I said thanks. What more do you want?" Hera squatted down in front of him and looked straight into his eyes. "I want to come with you." Mud's heart raced, and he clenched his fists. "This is my quest. I have to do it myself. Can't you see that?" "Mud," Hera took his hand. It felt strange touching her leather gloves and bracers instead of soft skin. "I promise." "Promise what?" Mud said, swallowing. Hera's brow furrowed. "I promise I won't die. In fact, I'll do one better. I'll keep you alive as well." Mud glanced at the owlbear. Maybe Hera was right. "Let's find somewhere to camp," Hera said. "I'll cook some owlbear meat for dinner." She pulled out one of her knives and went over to the corpse. "I don't want to eat that thing." Mud forced his reluctant body to stand so he could edge away. A moment before, the owlbear had tried to eat him. It didn't seem right eating it in turn. Hera rolled her eyes and retrieved her arrows, but left the owlbear untouched. "You may wish you had later on when you run out of food. I packed enough to give me the green hollow. You look like you haven't packed much at all." Mud pointed at Hera's small pack. "I have what I need," Hera said. "I can catch my meals as we go along." She set out through the trees, motioning for him to follow. "When you left the road, did you have any idea where you were going?" Hera asked. Mud grimaced. He'd been more interested in losing his pursuer. "It's all right," Hera called over her shoulder. "I know a shortcut back to the road from here. Come on." "I'm already starting to regret this," Mud muttered. He pushed his way through the trees to catch up with her. The air grew chilly, and would soon be dark. The scent of pine hung heavy around him. Hera's long knife flashed in the sunny sun as she twirled it while keeping up a brisk walk. "Where did you get those knives?" Mud asked. He carried his father's sword, such as it was. Their parents had not been wealthy, but his father, like many other men from Potter's Mill, had fought in the war. His father's sword was sturdy and reliable, if somewhat plain and a bit too heavy for Mud's liking. Hera pulled out the other knife and spun both in her hands. "Said I had 'em made for me. Because I'm small, I need something light and easy to wield. He said he trained me to use his dragon claws when I'm a bit bigger." Set-Eye's dragon claws looked like two heavy swords, but they curved at the top and had a sharp hook at the bottom and in the middle. The handles were attached to the back of the blades with pointed spikes before cutting downward. They were deadly weapons that Mud had never had any desire to wield. "I can't picture you with his dragon claws," Mud said. He had once watched Sedai train a girl to handle them pretty well, but that girl had been a knight. Hera grinned impishly at him and sheathed her knives. "Just wait and see." She sprinted into the trees, leaving Mud to chase after her. Karak cooked a fish over the fire near the dragon's lair entrance. The juice sizzled, filling the air with a succulent aroma. His stomach rumbled from breakfast, and he told it to be quiet. The fish he caught was the only food available at the moment, and it wasn't going to him. He slid it off the stick onto a shiny plate from Red Claw's hoard. His stomach continued to complain as he made his way back to the main chamber and the alcove beyond where Shamara huddled. "Best I can do, I'm afraid." Karak set the plate down next to the old woman. Shannara brushed her white hair out of her eyes and looked up. "The best thing you could do is to let me go." Karak backed away. The cave was damp and chilly since Red Claw wasn't there at the moment to heat it with her fiery body. "I'll try to find you another blanket," he told Shannara. Shannara's wrinkled fingers shot out and grabbed his arm. "I know you're planning something else. Something terrible. Don't do it. Unchain me, and we'll leave together while Red Claw is away." Karak shuddered and pulled out of her grasp. Shannara's blue eyes pierced him to the core. "People are going to get hurt, and I know you don't want that." Karak fled back to the main chamber and slumped against the wall. A blast of hot air filled the cavern, and Red Claw landed in the entrance, blocking the way out. Blood dripped from her teeth. She licked it off and belched, sending a spurt of fire across the room. "Karak!" she bellowed. Karak got to his feet and stepped out to face her. "Your friend Mud left me an owlbear to feast on. Most delicious. He's heading right where we want him, by the way." Red Claw preened in satisfaction. "Did he see you?" Karak asked. Icy shivers went through him, but he steeled himself for what he knew he had to do. "No, he killed the owlbear a while ago. He's nearly to the dwarf village now. It's time to go." Red Claw hunched down so he could climb on her back. Karak stayed where he was. "I'm not going." "What?" Red Claw roared and reared up over his head. "This whole plan was a bad idea," Karak said through gritted teeth. "I won't go along with it any more. If you want revenge on the Silver Dragon, you'll have to do it by yourself." Karak readied himself for the burst of flame that would turn him to ash. Red Claw snorted and lowered her head to look him in the eye. Her soft, menacing voice echoed in the silence of the cavern. "I will kill the Silver Dragon, with or without you. But if you refuse to help me, you will never become what you were meant to be. You will spend your whole life on the ground, hated and hunted, and the very people you're trying to protect will turn on you and kill you." Karak blanched and stared down at his feet. He knew Red Claw was right. "Look at me!" Red Claw's voice boomed through the cavern. Karak lifted his eyes and found himself staring into Red Claw's flaming red eyes. He tried to look away, but his body froze in place. Red Claw's voice surrounded him in a hypnotic rumble. "You will do things just the way we planned. When you, Mud, and Green Thumb find the Silver Dragon's pendant, you will take it and bring it to me. Kill anyone who tries to stop you." The dragon's compulsion burned through Karak's mind like fire. "Now climb on my back," Red Claw said, lowering herself to the ground. Karak's body moved of its own accord, pulling him up the hard dragon scales onto Red Claw, while the shreds of his free spirit fled to the back of his mind. End of Chapter 6.